You've got a company that's doing over $200,000 a year in ARR with about 99% margins, $0 in paid ads. You built by 2 people. It's all been within the last 6 months. And you freaking help people, find them dinner? You got over 2,000 people in New York City. So tell me, what is Table One? Dude, Tarek, I am so freaking excited to talk to you because you've got a company that's doing over $200,000 a year in ARR with about 99% margins, $0 in paid ads. You built by 2 people. It's all been within the last 6 months. And you freaking help people, find them dinner? You got over 2,000 people in New York City. So tell me, what is Table One?
Yeah. First of all, Nick, thank you for having me, man. I've actually watched a few of your episodes. This is a cool moment for me. But yeah, dude, Table One is a membership platform for, like you said, it's to help people get not just dinner. I think it's like the dinner, right? It's the amazing reservations that other people more or less think are intangible in their city. Right now we're starting in New York because New York seems to be the hotbed of where this problem kind of originated, but also where these restaurants seem to exist. It started as a personal problem and we've kind of grown it from there, but I'm excited to talk to you about it.
Explain to me like I'm 5 and like I'm an idiot, which won't be hard because I am an idiot. But there's Yelp, there's OpenTable, there's Google. I could just go see, what food's around me. How did you get freaking 2,000 people in less than 6 months to pay you money to be part of this membership? What exactly is the pain point you're solving?
The thing I always talk about is that the reservation platforms that exist today, when you think of like the Resis and the OpenTables and, whatever else is out there, 7 Rooms, they're fantastic, right? They're foundationally sound. They've kind of laid the framework of digitizing reservations. Like before that, you were calling the restaurant on the phone and they were writing it down in a book and saying, okay, yeah. And now we've kind of, we got to a point where like these places existed where you can now book a table online. And I think like more or less over the last 5 or so years, maybe a little bit more than that, like that particular industry, when it comes down to specifically high demand restaurants, you think like the hot spots in your city, it started to cannibalize itself in a lot of ways where now people weren't just reserving tables online for dinner, but they realized that there was an inherent value to those tables. So then they started repurposing them and selling them online for hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars.
Wait. So people would sell their reservations?
Oh yeah. It's an epidemic. It's happening
It's an epidemic.
It's happening in London. I mean, there was an article or I think it was last year where they were talking about Brown University kid who made $75,000 scalping reservations a year. Long story short, really what happens is these platforms that were built, OpenTable launched in 2004, Resi launched in 2014. They were built upwards of a decade plus ago. They were built to accommodate the restaurant. And what's happening now is there's this shift where the consumer is kind of being left out of the equation here. The consumer side of that, where, it's not built for speed in terms of notifying people when tables are available. There's not protections in place, like proper security to guard these things. So what we've basically done is built a system that kind of allows the human back into the game, right? Utilizing this kind of quicker technology so that you can basically start to reserve these tables again like a human would.
Let me see if I can frame it. It's almost like people with, what's the big ticket selling company? It's not StubHub. It's Ticketmaster. Okay. So it's like Taylor Swift's tickets go for sale on Ticketmaster. But you've got a ton of people who are going to buy tickets, not because they're going to go see Taylor Swift. They're going to buy them so that they can resell them at a profit.
It's a great analogy.
And so obviously they're trying to do some controls. This is effectively that. That's the problem that's kind of become with the open tables where you're making reservations is now people aren't necessarily making reservations to go eat dinner. They're looking at it as an arbitrage of I can make the reservation and then sell it and make money.
That's correct.
Friday night.
So they're basically weaponizing. They're weaponizing tech, right? They're weaponizing it to basically hit these sites like OpenTable, Resi, snag these reservations, and then they're either selling them or I mean, it's become. I mean, dude, I could talk to you about
how are they selling them? Tell me, I don't get it. How are they selling them? They're are they just on Reddit and they're like, I've got reservations at the new spot in Soho. Does anybody want it? And then people on Reddit respond. Where are they trading these?
So yeah, I mean, it's so interesting. In New York, particularly, there have actually been sites that have come up that were they're like black marketplaces, right? Where they post a table and say, oh yeah, you can buy this for $300, $400. And oftentimes it's demand based. So if they see that there's a lot of eyes on one restaurant, that price will dynamically change. So obviously it would increase price. And then like you said too, Reddit, like there are subreddits out there where, these kinds of trades happen, cash in hand.
A kid at Brown made $75,000 doing this?
He made $75,000. Yeah. And I mean, it was written about in the New Yorker last year. Actually,
What?
this has become such a big problem, Nick. This has actually become such a big problem that like New York State has actually passed a law that it talks about like third party reservations and just like basically the distribution.
No way.
Yeah. So, I mean, that is, I mean, we were basically out here trying to solve that problem for people before this state had to actually get involved to try to curb a lot of what was happening. And now they're doing the same thing in Florida because I think this is the problem in Miami. It's getting insane. Like it's getting really, really insane.
You're blowing my mind. I didn't even know this was a problem. I had no idea it was a problem.
It is crazy.
The state of New York passes legislation to say like, hey, look, you can't resell your food reservations.
Yeah.
Freaking nuts.
But like, there's a problem to this, right? So like when that happens, the reason we so for everyone listening, right? It's like, when you think of, oh, you guys built a startup around reservations, you guys are probably snagging reservations and then distributing them at like a fair price. No, that's not what we do, right? First and foremost, we wanted to leverage the foundation that was laid by Resi and OpenTable and Seven Rooms and whomever, because so many restaurants rely on the data behind who you are as a diner. So when you guys book with Table One, realistically, what we're doing is we're pushing you back to a Resi and OpenTable to book your table, right? Before any of these bad actors get there, so that it's your profile that's being attributed to the table. Then the restaurant is getting that data for them. Similarly, Resi and OpenTable now have actual like actionable data to be able to utilize themselves. So it's kind of a win-win here, not only for the diner, right, who's now getting fair access back to the to these really high demand places, but also to the reservation platforms who then distribute the data inevitably to the restaurants.
It feels like a super niche problem that it sounded like you were trying to solve it for yourself and it turned into a business, which is cool. I mentioned the numbers up front, to over $200,000 in annual recurring revenue at this point. How many signups have you had?
So since September of 2024, we had now it's coming up on 40,000 downloads, which is pretty crazy. It's just New York. I have to reiterate, it's just New York.
Less than a year. So less than a year you built this.
Sorry, September of 2023, the free model.
Oh, 23.
We launched our paid model in September of 2024. So yeah, it's been about 8-9 months of paid. We've just eclipsed 200K ARR. And like you said, man, like we've built a really capitally efficient business that we're super proud of. A lot of insights I can give you, on terms of that. But I think more or less, like myself and my co-founder Frank, like that's really what we pride ourselves on. Is it's not about building the business; it's like how you're building the business. Can you look at it like this is exactly like you're pinching every penny, you're turning every stone over to say like this is the best possible way to run this thing.
How much are people paying you a month?
Originally, we started out with $9 a month, and we had a $59 a year annual plan. We recently, just based on user behavior, we realized that the annual plan didn't actually make a lot of sense because New York is actually a really transient city. So what we decided to do is actually remove the annual plan, and now we're just doing $15 a month across the board. So that way people can hop in and out, they can cancel at will
so like, how does it work exactly? Are you basically doing identity verification through you so that these restaurants understand like, oh, okay, this isn't going to be resold. It's John Smith who's booking, or is it another way? Like, I don't understand necessarily how it cuts out the bad actors.
Realistically, what it does is like, we're not the ones cutting out the bad actors, right? We're kind of trying to give normal people a way to compete in a sense, right? And I think that like with the tech that we've built, it's not competing, it's winning.
What do I get for $15 a month? Let me ask that another way. Like,
that's a good question. So we basically have a totally crowdsourced list of, the best restaurants in New York. And when we say the best restaurants, it's restaurants that people have said, hey, I've had a problem getting a reservation. So number one, you're kind of getting an open live feed of like all of these reservations kind of in real time, flying in and out. And then on top of that, you're also getting a notify system that is actually quicker than what you would get traditionally on Resi, OpenTable, whatever these other platforms, so that you're kind of first to the punch when a table drops. So you're kind of paying essentially for quicker access, if that makes sense.
If I'm already somebody who has a bot that's going out and buying reservations for me and reselling them, or maybe I'm doing it manually, whatever, why wouldn't I just get a membership to your company, Table One, because now, oh, cool, I'll get notified earlier and I'll still be able to resell it. At least that's what I'm hearing. Why wouldn't they just join your app?
This is where we've actually been working with OpenTable and Resi, and really where we hope to like deepen this relationship with them is, a lot of it is like it's activity tracking, it's activity monitoring. It's like you can sense when, and you can look in the data when like behavior is really starting to change in a way that's like, oh, this is being overused. You can flag that user behavior. Similar in a way that Resi and OpenTable tries to do it. It's a lot tougher, when it's web traffic, because web traffic, it's hard to distinguish nowadays, especially with proxies and other things happening, that like you don't know if it's real human traffic, you don't know if it is a human. So it's like you're kind of betting on, okay, well, if they're moving a little bit too fast on my website, I'm just gonna like, block that IP.
Yeah.
And sometimes what that ends up doing is it actually ends up icing out a real person who's just pretty quick with the keys to try to get a reservation. At least on our end, it's, we're able to kind of monitor truly. It's like in-app, this is how they've used it before. This is who they're kind of going to dinner with, and kind of build a dining profile that's a little bit more granular than maybe a Resi or OpenTable deal.
How do you have your margins at 99%? Like everybody's talking about AI. Is this built on AI, or is this just a layer that was very simple to create? Like 99% margins is kind of nuts, right?
Honestly, like I wish my co-founder was here to kind of take plaudits here for a second.
So video's cool, but I have what scientists call a face for radio. And so what's even cooler is long form audio via my podcast and my newsletter, nikonomicspod.com. Go there for free, subscribe to my newsletter. It's 1 email per week. It's super tactical. And then go to my audio podcast. I do 3 to 5 episodes a week, depending on how curious I am. And it's stuff like this. It's all free, no sleazy sales pitches, nikonomicspod.com.
Realistically, like, there's kind of a lot of factors to what we do. It's the ability to kind of identify this data in real time, which, for a lot of the points is like, that's what bots were doing. Right. But it was kind of doing it in a way that was kind of, it could be caught by like the securities and everything. And now what we were doing originally, I think I mentioned this to you, was we were scraping that data, and that was great. And then we were able to kind of do that in a way that was incredibly quick, but then also to be able to distribute that via a notification or into an app, and to do that across, hundreds of restaurants. That's really where the cost starts to compound. That was really what we've spent the last 2 years optimizing. And then now it's gotten to the point where, we're able to sit at the table with, these platforms and say, hey, like, here is the real traffic that we've been driving to you guys. Like, here's the benefit that we have. And that's also played a pretty big role, I guess, in cutting our costs there as well. So, when we look at the grand scheme of things, as 200K ARR business, like, yeah, I mean, I'm proud to sit here and say, like, we're paying a few $100 a month to monitor it. It wasn't always, but that's just because my co-founder is a beast who looked into every possible detail of how do we cut costs. We don't have funding. We don't have, anything in the bank that's special. It's like, you gotta get creative. And that's exactly what we did.
All right, let's go back to the beginning. What were you doing at the time? How did you identify that this was a problem? What was your thought process and mentality back then?
So I actually realized that this was a problem back when I worked at American Express. And it started to become a problem when the credit cards, I think, made the move into Reservation. So like Amex bought Resi, OpenTable has now done a deal with Visa. They also have the Sapphire Reserve thing going on right now. 7 Rooms actually just got bought by DoorDash. I mean, there are a lot of big players that are making moves into the space. And I think at the time when I figured out it was a problem was when I moved up to New York. I moved up September of 2020, middle of COVID. So I followed a girl up here.
Great time.
And it's working out. So knock wood for that. That was great. At the time I didn't have a lot of, friends around. So my coworkers were like the ones who encouraged me to go and explore the New York dining scene. And that was really where I saw firsthand that, oh, wow, like, why is this a problem? Why is it that when I set a notify on Resi, I'm not getting notified? Why is it that when I show up at 9 a.m. to try to get my tables, like everyone on Reddit is telling me, I'm not getting my table? And that's kind of took me down the rabbit hole of like, okay, this is the problem. To be honest, I kind of forgot about it for a few years until my co-founder, my now co-founder, I hired him for another startup we were working on. He just, out of the kindness of his heart, offered up this thing that sent him a text when availability became like, when tables became open. And I got one of the amazing reservations in New York for my girlfriend for her birthday. When I told her, her face slipped. I mean, it was like, she's like melted, right? It was one of those like magic moments of like, what do you mean that you just got this thing? It was like, it truly was a magic trick. Yeah. That's kind of where this like, oh, this is a huge consumer problem, I think.
What were you doing at American Express?
I was a product manager. I was on the data team. So I was actually totally unrelated
Okay.
to, the Resi side. I was just more curious because I come from a data background.
You're in your mid-20s working at American Express. Were you entrepreneurial? I mean, it sounds like you had other startup ideas that you were working on. Did you always know you wanted to get into entrepreneurship?
I always did. Yeah. My dad is an entrepreneur. So I kind of watched him from like the age of, 4 years old. He started building his business out of our guest room. Right. And then that turned into the thing that kind of floated my family, the rest of my childhood. And it was amazing because, on one hand, my mom she's so by the book, right? In a lot of amazing ways. She's a nurse. She's worked in the same hospital now for 35 years. And she shows me discipline in one way. And then my dad was always the one that encouraged me, like, hey, like, if you really want to own your time and own your life, like, this is really how I've done it. And what
was his business?
He worked with USAID. He was actually a subcontractor. So he was funding a lot of projects in the Middle East and North Africa, things like providing laptops to schools and things like that. So he was, he really loved his work. And so that was actually my first job. I was 14 years old. He had me on the phones asking for deals on HP laptops. And then at 16, I was his delivery driver. So kind of got thrust in, and I think from there, I always knew.
Your dad, where's he from?
My dad's Jordanian. Yeah.
Jordanian. Yeah. Immigrants. They get the job done.
Yeah. My mom's British. So, I think that's awesome is like, my parents, like they really they didn't come from much. They were, they came from very modest means and for them, like getting here was awesome. And like, they built an amazing life. And I guess like what was cool was, I grew up in a part of the world where it's like, DC is awesome. Northern Virginia is fantastic, but it is a pressure cooker to a certain degree. And I watched a lot of my friends kind of get put under the microscope with a lot of different ways that they were like being raised. They were like, you have to be in this sport and you have to be doing this and you have to be doing this extracurricular and you have to get this SAT and this and this. And it's just like, they were absolutely bombed with work to the point where I don't think that they were allowed to like, my parents, they were just kind of happy when I was happy. I loved soccer. I loved tennis. I loved writing. So like they kind of really did everything in their power just to power those loves of mine. And then when I got to college, they were kind of just like, dude, it's your world. You got here. You did it. You did everything we wanted you to do. Figure it out, and that was cool.
My dad's an immigrant. He's full-blooded Ukrainian. He was born in Germany, but he was raised in Brazil. He was born in 1947 and his parents couldn't go back to the Ukraine. And long story. Anyways, he comes to the United States as a teenager and then he goes to Vietnam when he's like 20. So in his first 20 years, he's lived on, was that 4 different continents?
Yeah.
Yeah. Europe, South America, North America, Asia. As a kid, I didn't really understand him. I was like, I don't get it, Dad. Like, why don't we have more money? Why are you okay with broken down Mercedes in the driveway? Because we'd always have a Mercedes, but it would just be like 15 years old and broken down. And as I got older, I just realized like this dude grew up on dirt floors. So to be in the United States, like this is high living. You know what I mean? Much to my chagrin. But for him, it's like, what's the problem? We have a car. Well, it works. It drives. It goes to and from school. Who cares if it has different colored door, different color hood? Oh, don't be such a sissy. Mickey Mouse. Come on. He would be offended if I was offended,
Oh,
and it, like you grew up here, right?
Yeah, I did. I grew up on.
Yeah. I mean, you're just a dumb kid. You don't have their perspective, right? Like, you didn't see what it was like growing up overseas. You didn't see that they didn't have the same types of opportunities that we have here.
It's so funny you mentioned the car thing, because to this day, my dad, like he will always try to fix his car before like anyone put his hands on it. So like he'll spend so much time and he'll figure it out. He'll watch the videos. He'll do whatever. It's just the mentality. Like, I don't know. He's always been so good with that stuff. So I
do that. That is awesome. When you were at Amex and your co-founder approached you, were you like, oh, this is the idea? Or did you decide, let's test it for a little bit? Like, how did that kind of process work?
The crazy thing, I think this actually has a lot to do with why we built Table One the way that we did. So when I kind of was at Amex and that was happening, I kind of just took it as like, oh, okay, so like this is, essentially what I took away from it more or less is like, okay, the systems in place right now they're kind of credit card upsells, right? They tell you get priority access and sometimes you do, and then sometimes you don't. Most of the time you don't. And then, so I kind of walked away and I was like, okay, then that's just how it is. And I went about my life for 2 years. I went to another company. I moved to a company called Yext, which was an amazing 3 years there, but I actually was building another startup at the time. That's actually how I met my co-founder. And the funny thing about that is I think we did everything right, but build the product, so like you build the perfect pitch deck, you hire like 5 of your buddies, you give them all like 20% equity each, you have a Figma demo that's on YouTube, you get a YC interview, but like, and then you try to get like a really killer advisor on the advisory board. But like, when it all push came to shove, like there's no product, there's no traction, there's really no momentum. And when I met my co-founder, the number one thing that stood out to me about him is we met at a birthday party on a Saturday. I'll let you, kind of determine or figure out how many margaritas between the two of us we had over the period there. But he basically at the end of that conversation said, you know what, dude, I love your idea. I want to come and work with you. And I said, all right, guy, I just met like an hour ago. Like, let's see. Sure, maybe we have a meeting on Thursday. Does that sound good to you? He's like, great. And I honestly left that birthday party thinking, well, that was fun. I'm never going to hear from that guy again. And then the next day he texted me. He said, still good for Thursday? I was like, yep. And then he shows up on Thursday. And I'm not even kidding you, Nick. He had found our video, our Figma demo on YouTube. And then using screenshots that he had taken from our YouTube video, he built our entire app in 4 days. And this is pre-Vibe. This is pre-Cursor. Whoa. This is pre-Claude. This is pre-everything. This is just dude who was on a mission, self-taught programmer. He wanted to make a statement with this new team. He wanted to show them that he could provide value. And we had a working prototype just because he decided 4 days prior that he wanted to come in and impress it at what he now calls his interview. So that was
his interview. His interview was like, okay, I built the product.
That was step one. Yeah, literally. And
dude,
yeah, I know it was pretty crazy. And so like to your point about, well, when did this happen? It's like him and I were the only 2 New York based co-founders. And, the startup after a while, if you are building it the way that I mentioned before, where you're trying to go for the interview and you're trying to go for the press and you're trying to go for everything, it loses steam eventually. So naturally what happened was my girlfriend's birthday came up. I told you about the moment that, we got the reservation, and honestly, him and I just wanted to deploy something for fun. We were just like, let's get this up on a website. Let's just get people using it. Let's do the opposite, right? Like, let's do the opposite of everything we've just been doing. And we put it on Reddit and we put it on Instagram, and it kind of just started to move. That was really the moment.
All right. So there's a lot of people listening who maybe they're in your situation, or they want to be in your situation where they're like, I'm working full time and I wish I had an idea for an app or a co-founder, or they've launched that side hustle, quote unquote, and they're like trying to figure out, is this working? Is this not working? So my question is a 2-part question. The first part is, when did you know it was working? Yeah. And how did you know? And then the second part of the question is, when did you quit your job? Or do you still have a job?
No, I don't. I don't have a job. Thank God.
Oh, spoiler alert. Okay.
But yeah, so great question. So,
hey, I don't know if you remember this, but when we started this podcast, we entered into a social contract. I would spend time, energy, and money producing this podcast, interviewing these individuals, and giving you insights into how to build, buy, start, grow your business. And you would like, subscribe, and leave me 5-star review. Now, out of that, we both get to talk to really cool people and hear really cool insights. We both get a ton of value. But I just want to help you keep your word. So would you do me a favor? Will you go leave a 5-star review for me on Apple or Spotify? It would really help. And if you want, even share this with a friend.
The amazing thing about this was we really never intended for it to be this big company, like, or this thing that could be a big company, right? We really shipped it for the love of the game, right? We were just like 2 people that just really wanted people to use our stuff, and we really wanted to solve our own problem. To your point, right? This was a personal problem for both him and I. And so we kind of started to see it, kind of snowball a little bit. And the beautiful thing about dining is there's like an inherent network effect to it. So like if I get a reservation for 4, typically the first thing that happened was the other 3 people at the table asked me, well, how did you get it? So we started to kind of spiral. I think for me, when I really felt it, I was like starting to work, was when my DMs on Instagram started filling up with like, dude, this is insane. This is awesome. We think we were about 500 people you feel like the magnetism of like, oh my God, like people are using this thing that I built.
You launched September 2023. When did you start getting those DMs?
Yeah. So I guess like to back it up, right? So we launched a beta on a website in March of 2023. And then that's why what I meant is like, this wasn't supposed to be a big thing. We were literally just like, let's create a website, and if people use it, great. If people don't, no big deal. So that was March of 2023. I started getting the DMs first week of April of 2023.
Oh, wow. Really quick.
Yeah, it happened really, really fast. And people were like, this is insane. Like, I want this feature. I want this restaurant. Like, I think like there's so much great advice out there. But if there's one thing that I loved was that like, keep your product super simple, because then your users will tell you everything else that they need. And that's exactly what happened. So my DM started filling up with like people who were just asking for, oh, wait, what if we could do this? And what if I could select multiple party sizes? And what if we could add this restaurant? And it was infectious, man. It made me double the time I spent on it, simply because like, I just loved like responding to that feedback, and I loved giving it back.
So when did you get to 100 people using your product?
Pretty much by the second day, I think.
What?
Yeah, it was insane. Like,
wait, how did you get 100 people to sign up with no, like, were you running a bunch of paid ads?
Yeah, no, I mean, we literally paid an influencer, like, I think it was $100 to put us on her story. And then we got 41 people from that. And then honestly, that was the only paid ad we ran for the longest time. And then because those 41 people started using it, then their friends started using it. And then my friends started using it, whose other friends started using it. And then, yeah, before you know, we had 100 people, we had 300 people, 500 people. And then by week 3, we had 1,000 people. It was crazy.
Wait, by week 3, you had 1,000 people?
Yeah, totally organic.
Totally organic. Just network effects.
Network effect.
Friends of friends of friends.
That's why.
What's your churn like?
Well, the thing is that when you're a free product, right? It's like you're not really focused on.
True. Yeah.
So honestly, I can't even tell you. I all I know is that like the growth rate spoke for itself, right? And the funny thing is that at that time, now obviously we're a fully fledged app. We send push notifications, and push notifications are free. But at the time, we were sending text messages. So I think by like week 3, to the point where we had 1,000 people on it, we were sending like 27,000 text messages a day. And we were like, dude, if we keep growing at this rate, I think a text message is like a cent per text. We're not going to be able to afford our own business. So we basically, we shut it down. Yeah, we shut it down.
What? You shut down the app?
We shut it down. We literally started getting so expensive to send text messages. It was the craziest. Actually, looking back on it, I can't believe we did this. Like we fully just sent out a message that said, hey guys, we're going to shut this down. We're going to try to make this an app, and then we'll let you know. And so we went 2 months just radio silent. And then we launched our app in test flight because we wanted to test it out. And I don't know if you've ever used a test flight app. It's like you need like 3 steps just to get into the app. You need verification code, all stuff. We launched that on June 17th of 2023. By August, we had 2,200 people using the test flight version of the app, which just the demand, right? It's like, honestly, I don't even think I realized how big the problem was until I started, kind of seeing those numbers.
So you shut it down. You're like, look, we can't even afford to send these text messages out.
Yeah. I mean, it was crazy, man.
All right. So March you launched, you're working at Amex. Within a month, you're like, oh, this is too big. Let's shut it down. And then you relaunch and test flight in June, and by August, you're over 2,000 people are using it. At what point in there were you like, holy crap, this is it, I'm quitting my job? Did you?
Or was it I wanted to quit my job so early, but I think that like there's a difference between being excited, right? And then there's a difference between like being pulled. So I think like in August, we were really excited about the traction, but it wasn't enough. If I'm honest with you, it wasn't enough for me to leave my job. And I knew it. Like I wanted to quit, but I knew it. And I needed the paycheck, right? It's like, I actually think that keeping my job, like, helped me make more sane decisions. It helped me be a little bit more creative. It kind of gave me that like mental clarity of just like, I'm not worried about money. So I'm not operating from a point of fear. I'm operating from a point of true strategy. Like, yeah, I want my messaging to sound like this. I want to work with this person, or we should design the app this way. And I think that like so many people are like, oh, when you build a startup, you have to quit your job because you have to only focus on that. And I disagree. Like I have an ADD brain. So like for me, actually having a job was kind of therapeutic at times. Like whenever I was able to dive back into building Tableau dashboards for the C-suite exec, like, it was kind of like, you get frustrated with what you're building and you're like, okay, I'm just going to like focus on this other stuff for a little bit. And then you come back to it and then you have a new perspective. And then it really helped the growth. And obviously the money was good too, to keep us afloat.
I've talked to a few people and they've told me like, oh, you've got to hear this crazy story. So a ton's going on. You've launched, you shut it down, relaunch, test flight, etc. You're balancing like, do I quit my job? You're working on the side. Apparently that's not the craziest part of this whole story.
Not even getting there. Not even beginning.
Tell me when it gets crazy. All right, let's get to the crazy part of this thing.
Okay. Crazy thing is, so I'll fast forward, right? So launched the app store. I'd say like by December, we had about 5,000 people using the app at that point. Again, purely organic, like really, it was crazy to us. Like, I mean, the crazy thing was in March of 2024, we get a DM from this guy at the New Yorker. And he's like, hey guys, like I want to talk to you guys about like what you're doing in the reservation space. And we were like, us two, the dudes who just launched a Reddit app, that is sure, man, like that sounds good. And what was crazy about that is a month and a half later, in the same week, we were in the New Yorker. And then that New Yorker article became the #1 most read article of, I think it was the previous year for the New Yorker. It was a global thing. I was getting sent, my aunts were sending me the link.
Shut up.
Like, do you know that you're in this? And I was like, what was crazy though, this is the hilarious thing. This guy, fully the interviewer, Adam, this guy's awesome. I think he fully came and was like truly writing a piece about like how, kind of destructive the reservation space becomes. He wanted dirt on all of the platforms. He wanted to talk a lot of crap. And when he met us and he just heard our story, exactly what I just told you, he's like, damn, I'm rooting for you guys. This is awesome. Like, and the one neutral line I would say in that whole article is just us. It just talks about what we do. It doesn't say anything bad. It doesn't say anything. And we got, like, I'm not even kidding you, Nick, overnight, 3,000 plus downloads. Then another publication hit us up called Gothamist, because one of the reporters said that we had almost helped her get into like Tatiana, which is like a big restaurant. And she was like, you guys are the closest thing I've come to actually getting in. And I actually think I'm going to get a reservation. And then the last thing because of all this press, our emails got flooded with VCs who are like, we need to talk to you guys now. Also, one Friday, that same weekend, Friday, I think we had like 6 or 7 VC meetings by 2 p.m. and we were like hopping around places in Manhattan.
Okay, so when was this?
This is April of 2024 now.
Okay, so this is before you even launched the paid version.
Yeah, it's just, we're still free.
I know you're not paying for text messages, but there's still going to be some costs associated. So how are you funding the app at this time?
Yeah, so I mean, this is where the optimization point that I told you about, right? Like we had gotten Frank had gotten really good at what he was doing. Like he'd kind of gotten our costs down to like a very nominal amount, like in terms of kind of near where we are now, like, maybe a little bit more. So for us, it was like, great. We still had our jobs and that was it. But, I left my job in March.
But still, it's costing $1,000 a month. Let's call it.
Yeah. Like, it's like,
who was paying for that? You're just on your credit card or what?
Yeah, we were splitting it. I'm not. I was literally Venmoing him like half of it. Like that was it.
Just because you were so stoked, you're like, dude, it's growing. This is awesome. Like, yeah, let's keep putting money into this.
I mean, like, because I wanted this to be the full-time gig. And I think.
And how many, before the New Yorker article came out, how many people were downloading it and using it?
I think at that point, like talking February, March, talking like 7,000, 6,000, 6,500, 7,000.
Okay, let's fast forward a month after the New Yorker article comes out. How many people are using it?
At that point, 21,000. Yeah.
It's 3x. I talk about this all the time. And there's a saying in venture: first time founders focus on product, second time founders focus on distribution. Distribution is just incredibly important. Most of these companies, when they go and raise money from venture capital, half of those dollars go to Google and Facebook to acquire customers, because they're running paid ads and they're trying to acquire customers. And that's why it's always, hey, what's your CAC? Oh, what's your LTV? Oh, your LTV to CAC ratio and your ROAS and that's why those metrics are so important, because you have to have customers in order to have a product. So distribution is incredibly valuable. And I just looked it up. 1.3 million paid subscribers to the New Yorker, 21 million monthly readers because they have an online presence as well. So just randomly, you get this New Yorker
Stroke of luck.
columnist who reaches out to you,
Total luck.
writes about it, throws you in there, boom, you're on the fast train, man.
Dude, Nick, the crazy thing, right, is like we're still two dudes with an app. The way that this article talked about us, it was like we were one of the big companies, right? It's like it had literally it listed, it was like Resi, OpenTable. I don't know if you're familiar with a company called Dorsia. Like it had, I mean, it was crazy. You're in an article with multi-billion-dollar global, like platforms, and then you also having new startups that just raised, I think plus million. And it's like you have two guys who just built literally a thing and launched it on Reddit. I mean, it was insane.
So when you went from 6,000 to 21,000, did anything break?
Oh yeah.
Were there any moments where you're like, I've screwed this up? Great, it's over. Like we screwed ourselves.
If you don't have those moments, then I don't think that you're really a founder. We thought we were like, I mean, there were so many times we were dead. A lot of our stuff is broadcasting reservation inventory, right? It's so you're able to go and cross-check that on Resi, and it's sitting in Resi, but it's not sitting in your app, and then your app just goes blank because your connection broke for a second. We were dealing with that a lot. It was a fire that we were constantly putting out just because of the sheer usage of the product.
Volume.
I mean, it was insane. It really.
Well, dude, I have to tell you this story. So Chris Kerner is one of my best friends, and we're not one of my best friends. He's my best friend, known for 20 years, business partners. And years ago, this is probably close to 10 years ago at this point, he was deep into crypto, big believer. And he still is a big believer in crypto. He reaches out to this guy named John McAfee. You know who John McAfee is?
Yeah, you know John McAfee, yeah.
Okay. So John McAfee was huge. If anyone doesn't know who John McAfee is, if you have antivirus software, it's most likely McAfee. He's the one that invented that. But then he became a big Bitcoin believer. And Chris had figured out this algorithm basically that took underutilized data sources and projected which coins were going to take off. Basically, he went to Reddit and some of these other sites, Twitter, and based on the sentiment, he was able to predict accurately which coins were going to take off. So he DMs John McAfee. It's a great story. I won't get into all of it. Long and short of it is, he and McAfee end up partnering, and they end up launching this as a service. It was called No BS Crypto. What it was is basically, hey, you have access to this group and we sell tips. And that's like the very short version of it. But anyways, on the day of launch, McAfee had over 1 million followers on Twitter and probably a couple million across platforms. They launched this thing. It's getting massive traction. Hundreds of thousands of people within an hour have already seen the tweet, and it's pointing them to a Discord channel. And so they're going to the Discord channel, and Chris realizes, holy crap, I messed up the permissions on this Discord channel. Everybody has admin rights. And so really quickly, people had taken it over and were just changing a bunch of stuff. Chris got kicked out, and he was like, John, you gotta take on that tweet and retweet. And John's like, no, I don't ever delete any of my tweets, Chris. He's like, no, John, I don't think you understand. Like, I screwed this up. And anyways, for years, we've talked about that experience because that was a moment where he was like, super high, holy crap, this is amazing, this is incredible, to super low because he's like, I just effed all this up. All that goodwill that we just built up, the amazing launch that we just executed, I effed up because my back end sucked. So I always think of that story when something goes really right, because anytime something goes really right, a lot of other things are going to go really wrong. And it's all about how you manage through that process.
Frank and I have felt this. And I think like the one thing I will say is like, the system that Frank built, considering that it really was just that, it was him, it was a one-man army. And like for him to be able to build a system that not only did what it was doing to provide the product, but then also handle the traffic that was coming in. Like, it was insane to watch him just kind of go into this overdrive point, and he killed it. He crushed it. And we were getting all of this traction, and people were loving it. And it started just to really kick off. I think by the end of that summer, I want to say like July, we were closing in on 30,000 people just because, again, it was just going. And we're talking, it's just New York, and dining is hard. Dining is hard.
Well, that's what's crazy is it is just one market, and you still have never to this day run paid ads. It's only ever been organic.
This is the beautiful, and I could talk about the raise that we had just done. And that was the whole point of really kind of raising that capital. And we have someone on who's, kind of really helping us with social strategy, and she's fantastic. But like, I never ran paid ad. Like we ran some here and there just to test it. But like, as far as like consistently committing to, let's say a strategy and all that stuff, Frank and I were never the guys that were going to be able to run social. We did not feel comfortable in that realm. We did not really know messaging and that all that stuff. So to be honest with you, like we kind of stuck to our strengths, and our strengths in this case were product.
Let me ask you this: you've gone to the paid model. It still sounds like you're not growing at 18,000 a month, but you're still growing at a good clip. Where do you think Table One is a year from now?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's just so crazy to me because I think we've opened up kind of the eyes of a lot of people in the space. So I think that like right now, when people think Table One, they think of the B2C product, right? They think of the app. They think it's like, oh yeah, it's a consumer subscription. That's great. There's so much more to this business. Like there's a B2B angle here where we're actually selling into sales teams and investment managers, and because they need it for their clients. There's a world here where we're selling it into hotel concierges because they're approaching us for their own clientele. And then there's a world here where like the system that Frank has spun up, it's white labelable. So there are companies that have approached us to like spin up their own reservation world, because the movement right now for a lot of, corporate travel or, anything kind of related to experiences, it's all about consolidation. So, for them, being able to kind of have that on hand to connect, let's say, travel to dining and kind of ironing out a whole night and a whole weekend is huge. And I think we're just kind of scratching the surface as to like what this thing is truly capable of. That's before we're even talking about the expansion into other cities for the B2C app. So it's a crazy time to be frank.
There's two things that are kind of competing here. I think if somebody's listening to this, on the one hand, they're thinking like, well, must be nice to find a founder who could just build the app really quickly and partner with you. Must be nice to just randomly get featured in the New Yorker and then have your growth accelerated.
That's fair.
But at the same time, I'm a huge believer that you can increase the surface area of your luck, whether it's through networking or hard work or just iterating and trying a bunch of things. And what I would say the counter to these is that at the same time, you didn't go the traditional route. You didn't raise money. You were a bootstrapped tech founder. You did it in a very non-traditional way. So yes, the exact things that you did where you got lucky are not necessarily replicable. However, I think the way that you approached it in bootstrapping it could be replicable. So if you're talking to that person who's listening, what advice would you give them? Or even what advice would you give yourself 5 years ago when you were starting out this process to help them get started, or to help them feel confident in like, yeah, I could do this. I could figure out how to do this. Like, what do they need to look out for? What advice would you give yourself?
The number one value I'd say that like Frank and I have, right? And what we look for in people that we work with, it's not where you went to school. It's not what your portfolio is telling you said. It's not what your Twitter looks like. It's not what anything. The number one thing is, are you going to show up like every single day? And there are tangible qualities that you see in a person. Like when you talk to them, it's like, what's their energy? How are they like asking questions? Is it empathetic? Like, is it when they talk about, working with you, is it really from a point of a we, or is it a point of like coming from a point of self-interest? And I think that like the only thing that made Frank and I a good team wasn't because like, yeah, I mean, he's an insane engineer, but we had to learn, right? It's like, he had never built an app before Table One. I had never designed an app before Table One. I had never raised money before Table One. And I think that like, as long as we showed up every single day and committed to each other and said, yeah, man, like, I don't know how to do this, but I'm going to figure it out. Like that was the only thing that we needed. And we were able to break through walls because of that.
What about any other advice you would give? You're like, man, if I could do it over again, I'd do this different.
A lot of people seek comfort in this journey, and that is totally okay. Right. I think that like, when you think about what makes the road less scary, it's sometimes finding people that unlock you and they kind of cover your blind spots in a lot of ways. Right. And people do this in the sense of like, oh, but I can bring on my friend who's in X sales, and he can start to do partnerships. And I
Right,
can bring
right.
on this person to do the design of the app, and I can bring on, do it yourself. You have to try, because if you are not at least trying and failing, then you don't care enough, personally. And I think that like I did that in my first startup, where I tried to outsource everything. And to the point, Nick, genuinely, where I'm not even sure what my job was anymore. Like I had somebody come on, and these are amazing people. They're amazingly talented people. Like someone for design, someone to do partnerships, someone to do obviously the tech. And then it's just like, there's me, and I'm sitting here and I'm not doing product. I'm not doing engineering. I'm not doing like the business development side of it. I'm not doing marketing, because I already told you that I'm not great at that. So realistically, like, what am I doing? And I've kind of just talked my way and sold my own equity out of a job. And so I'd say like that is first and foremost to anyone else. If I could tell myself something 5 years ago, it's that. It is 100% that. Just try everything. Have to do it.
I think it's a really good piece of advice as well. I mean, a lot of people want to talk in Silicon Valley now of like, oh, founder mode. However, you do need to know what your business is. If you are outsourcing everything, then you have no core competency. Like there has to be something that's special about you, or at least you're in the weeds on, if you think that your business is going to be successful. So I love that advice. I think that's fantastic advice. Where do you hang out? Where's the best place for people to come find you? YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn?
I just got on Twitter because, I basically was told it was bad for business to not be on Twitter. So now I'm on Twitter. I'm talking about everything I'm talking about here. I love LinkedIn. Honestly, LinkedIn gets a horrible rap but I love it because of just, I really do believe that there are a lot of people there that are like trying to learn and they want to share in a lot of ways, right? It's like, I hate some of the AI cringe content that I see, but like, I think that in a way you're almost standing out more if you go on there and you start to try to share genuine content, because I think people can read it. So those are the two places that I hang out, and we have Table One on Instagram. And
it seems like somebody who's benefited so much from organic reach, you would just be all over the socials.
I had to, right? It's like, and this is the last crazy story I'll tell you. And it really was how we raised the money. So I think like, we had all this traction. We were in all these articles, we had everything, right? And I told you, like, we were running the business efficiently. No VC was really, they basically told us like, guys, we love you. We love you. We love the product. We love the traction. We just can't get to conviction on the size of the problem. And, right now consumer is very not in vogue. And that was really the last domino that we could never tip over. So what did I do? I dove into the world of AI. I went on Lovable, and I spun up what I'd call like an investment portal, right? And I basically said, you know what, screw it. I'm tired of going to these people who don't understand the business, who don't understand how hard we work to do this and like what it really is. So I basically just blasted all of our metrics up on a page, and I made it this really lovely, beautiful thing. I said, hey, this is Table One. Here's a video about us. Here's all of our metrics. Here's our growth. And then, by the way, if we were to raise the money, here is a roadmap as to how exactly we were going to execute. And I shipped it. And then I put it on Reddit.
Is this live still? Is it still live?
Yeah, it's live. And I'm going to send
Where is it?
Send it to you. It's if you type in invest.table1.app, this is the page. So I shipped that in, I'm not even kidding you. It took me 2 days to put together. I put it on Reddit. I put it on LinkedIn. And within about 3 days, I think we had over $600,000 of investment interest from users, from people that have followed the journey of Table One, from my friends. Yeah, here it is.
Dude, this is it. Okay.
You scroll down. Yeah, if you scroll, this is
invest.table1.app. So I'm looking here. First of all, looks fantastic. You built this?
Yeah, I built it. Yeah, so the design and everything, and there's our metrics. There's the story.
Okay, let's see our metrics here.
And this was this was back in, I think this is April.
Oh, so this was almost a year ago. So
no, this is April of this year.
Oh, dang. Okay, so you've already added 60 grand of ARR.
Yeah, it was a good quarter.
Okay. $514 a month in operating expenses. Holy Moses. 2,000 active paying members. What does that translate to? That's $30,000.
Well, that was back when we had our $9 a month in our
got it. Okay.
Plan of 49. Yeah. Is different.
Okay. Paid user retention, 89%. Dude, why didn't we look at this earlier? I'm like over here trying to wrap this intervue. Son of perdition. Okay, paid user retention, 89%. Industry benchmark, 40%. Dude, this is so clean. This is perfect. This is like,
Those are the A16Z benchmarks, right? So like we went into pitch meetings and we said, yo, listen, based on what a traditional paid consumer app is, this is where we are. This is what we're doing. And we yelled and we were trying to get it through their heads and we couldn't get any conviction. So we said, we know what we have. Let's go and take it to the community.
what does conversion rate mean?
So that's paid conversion. So it's basically from download to paid subscriber. What is that?
Got it. Wow, almost 40%, and the industry benchmark is 5%?
That's correct. Yeah.
You guys are freaking crushing it. Organic, 98%. Industry benchmark, 75%. Holy crap. Okay, so what is this? Hypercard, super good.
Yeah, these were pieces to our puzzle, right? So like
Okay.
Hypercard partnership. Hypercard's great. I mean, it's run by a buddy of mine, Mark. They basically have this great card product that they're now actually selling into enterprise. So we were actually kind of picked as their dining perk so that anybody with the Hypercard can go in and sign up for Table One. And that was a pretty big win for us. Super good is something that we're still noodling on as far as, how we can kind of aggregate content around food into more bite-sized actual stuff. Kind of like when you see you search something on Google and it comes up very aggregated. And then the last two things are the Table 1+1 events. It's kind of really getting humans back, together to kind of foster that community.
Oh, that is so smart.
And help along to bring a friend to a dinner event or something that might not be on Table One.
And then, smart.
Yeah.
Let me ask about this one. Hold on. Does that turn Table One basically into an events platform where it's like, hey, I'm hosting a dinner and it's just dinners and people are able to connect that way? Or is it something different?
You're very astute, man. So one of the things that we've talked about a lot is there are actually a lot of private chefs that really want to host more intimate dinners and they ticket them. And this is basically a way for Table One members to kind of get a little bit of more exclusive experience, right?
So smart.
Add memberships for you. And yeah, so we're really excited about it. I think it's going to be great. I really do.
Dude, that is so smart. And in-person things are so popular right now. So I have a company named Tribe, which is a community for entrepreneurs. And it's not like YPO or EO, which are, oh, yeah, aren't we so smart? Yes, I went to Harvard. Where did you go? Oh, I went to Brown. Everyone's patting themselves on the back. Tribe is for entrepreneurs who are in it. They're like $10 million and less. There are bigger companies than that, but it's like those entrepreneurs who they're trying to get to the next level.
Totally.
And because we niche down on it and it's in person and these are connections, it's been really popular. And I think anything that facilitates human to human connection like this is super smart. So I love this +1 events idea. I think that's an incredible idea.
Yeah, we're excited, man. I think you hit the nail on the head, really. I think especially now. So this was all built in Lovable in 2 days.
This is insane. This is amazing.
I know. So we basically said, dude, if no one institutional is really going to look our way, let's see if the crowd around us does. And honestly, most of our investment came from our users. So we were able to kind of start funding this next stage of things. And we're still actually very much on the investment side of things. But I think what we're looking towards, right, is it's more so about, it's not now how much money are you bringing on? It's who are you bringing on? So actually allowing our community to participate in this event was great because not only are you kind of bringing them in as part of the squad, and this is theirs now too, but you kind of allow them and you enable them in a way because now they become an advocate for the product even harder than they've ever been.
This is really clean. It's not just the look of you made it look nice, but the way you've structured it. Cool. This is our company. Here's our story in 2 minutes. You can click on this video. Now I'm up to speed. We've been featured in these, so it's like instant credibility builder. Forbes, The New Yorker, Gothamist, great. Yep. And then it's okay. Here's a little bit about the high level pieces of the company. Here's how many app downloads, paid member, all the metrics I would want to see. It's not too many metrics. I'm not overwhelmed. It's enough. And then you just pick 3 that are very clearly showing how powerful the company's operations are. The paid user retention, the conversion rate, and the organic acquisition. As an investor, that's what I want to look at, right? And you just clearly call them out. There's a very clear comparison against the industry benchmarks. And then you've got obviously your roadmap. It's not too much information. It's very clean. If I want to learn more, I can reach out to you. This is a really smart way to communicate this. because there's so much you could have thrown into this and you didn't.
Being on the investor track, right, where you're like really going around and having so many meetings, like you kind of learn what to cut out. You kind of learn what, and I think like, for us at the end of the day too, it's like when we were going to advertise to our community and say, hey guys, come on in. It's like, we wanted to make it as digestible as possible. Like, like you said, it was enough to start a conversation. And if they really wanted to dive in, like you don't have to throw up all of your metrics onto a page and have them look through. If they want to find out more, they'll ask, because that, and at the end of the day, like that's all we really wanted, was just to get to a point where they were like, hey, I'm curious. Can I read more? Can you tell me more? Can we go for a beer and talk about it? And that's, it was insane.
How much are you raising right now?
We are capping our round at 400. And it's because honestly, we really don't need much. There was a time where I wanted to raise $1 million and I looked at it, I was like, why would I be giving up so much of this company if I don't need to use all of that? So I've since kind of reprogrammed myself and said, no, let's take less. Let's really just iron it out on paper, only what we need. And we landed at 400. So we are, as far as the WeFunder is right now, like that was exclusively community from users. We've taken 157,000 so far. We have, I mean, I'm not even going to kid you when I say this. There's about 2 million of interest on the table. We're kind of overcommitted.
Jeez.
So now we're kind of having conversations as far as like, who is the right partner here?
Yeah, it's a good place to be. Totally a good place to be.
And that's where we're operating from. So for the first time, I think we're operating from a place of leverage and not from touch.
What was the WeFunder valuation? So $150,000 at what valuation?
We actually went with a $4 million cap because so many people were like, dude, you could raise that 7, you could raise it 8, you could raise, and we sat there and we were just like, no, if this is going to be our community and this is kind of our first real go at this, like what you need is results. You need to show people that you can raise, you can build the plane, you can fly the plane, but you can land the plane and then they can get a return. So that if I'm going to be a serial entrepreneur my whole life, and honestly, like this is a huge conversation my co-founder and I had. If you're going to be a serial entrepreneur your whole life, potentially going to raise money in the future, the number one thing you need on your resume is an exit that produced, right? So for us, I'm not going to try to shoot for an insane valuation. I'm going to go for a very, very modest valuation and then try to exceed that target by however much so that my investors are even more happy. And then we go from there. And that was my thought process.
So when you say a $4 million cap, you're talking about you guys raised a safe.
Yeah, on a safe. Okay. That's correct. Okay. Or post money.
What's this next round? Is it a safe as well?
The thing is, right, it's like we're talking with syndicates. There's a lot of people that, they might want to do an SPV. They might want to do something else. We're figuring what that is, but we're thinking that depending on the partner, it'll still be somewhere around $4 to $6 million, cap. Preferably we would do it on a safe. That's my preference.
Still a great valuation, dude. I mean, for where you are in the life cycle of your company and the position that you're in, to be able to go and raise money and at terms that you want, to be selective with who you bring on is, dude, it's incredible. All right, dude, this was amazing. Thank you. All right. Hopefully you liked that episode. And if you've made it this far, you're either really committed or you're stuck doing yard work and you can't actually skip on your phone. So while I have you, the show is growing, but I have a favor to ask of you. Will you please help me grow the show? I want to reach more people. There's a couple things that you can do. Like and subscribe is the simplest thing. Obviously, you want to get notifications for when the next episode is coming out. But if you go the next step, will you leave me a review? 5-star on Spotify or Apple. What that does is it tells the algorithm that, oh, hey, this is a high value podcast because more people are leaving reviews for it, and it then pushes it out to more people. So that's why when people are like, will you like and subscribe and put a 5-star rating? It's not just to make themselves feel better. It's actually to get more exposure for the show. So if you do that for me, I would greatly appreciate it. And I'll see you next time.